Welcome to the Four Eyes podcast, brought to you by Young OD Connect. We give you a clear view into the new grad optometry world across Canada and the US. And we are your hosts. I'm Dr. Amrit Bilku.
And I'm Dr. Deepon Carr.
And today we're actually excited because we are going to talk about business partnerships. And so later on, we're actually going to have Dr. Manraj Fervaha join us. He is my business partner at Northern Sight Optometry. And we are very early into our business partnership relationship. But I think we've already been going through this journey of opening up a private practice for almost 2 years now, or a little over 2 years. So there's just a lot of things that we'd like to share, because I think most of the time business partnerships have more of a negative perspective, or a lot of people are hesitant to have a business partner. And so far it's been pretty good, smooth sailing for us. So we just wanted to share our experiences, and Deepon is going to have fun interviewing us.
Yes.
So without further ado, let's get started with the interview. Okay, we can start because Manraj is getting nervous. So he's just like, okay, when am I answering these questions?
Okay. So today we're going to be talking about business partnerships, the pros, the cons, all the nitty gritty details. So if you guys already didn't know, Amrit and Manraj here started a optometry practice together. So we're just going to go into more detail about how they came about with their partnership. And yeah, we'll just talk more about that. But since a lot of you guys don't know who Manraj is, Manraj, give an introduction about yourself to our listeners.
Hi, Deepon and Amrit. Thank you guys for having me on your podcast. I've been a listener for a long time, so I'm really excited to be here. But my name is Manraj. I'm an optometrist. I graduated in 2017 from ICO. Shout out to class of 2017. So I grew up in Toronto.
Oh.
There you go.
For anyone not watching, Deepon's got the ICO sweater on, representing.
We're all from ICO.
But let me tell you right now, it's not a special day. She wears that every day of her life. So
I still have mine too. I should have worn it too.
Me too. We should have all worn it.
We should have all worn it.
That would have been perfect.
Yeah.
So yeah, I grew up in Toronto, went to school in Chicago, moved back to Toronto, and started practicing in 2017. Practiced a bunch of different places, side by sides, private practice, walk-in clinic, so a bunch of different places. And now me and Amrit just opened our private practice about 6 weeks ago at Northern Sight Optometry. And so yeah, it's been a fun process so far, and learned a lot, and just continue to work and grow from there.
Nice. And yeah, we're excited to get to know your side of the partnership, because obviously Deepon knows my side, and I've probably mentioned our partnership, a couple of times on the podcast, but it'll be nice to really get into those details of how it's been successful so far. Knock, knock, knock on wood. But so you mentioned, you've been in a corporate side-by-side leasing for many years, and now you finally made the decision to transition to private practice ownership. So what motivated you specifically to switch that mode of practice?
Yeah, so with the side by sides, it's been a great experience. I still have 2 locations that I go to. In the States, I would say it's similar to like Target or Walmart. And it's been a great experience where you have low overhead. You can see a lot of patients, grow your practice. Still, you're independent in a sense where no one's telling you exactly how to run your practice. But there are some limitations as well. So some of them are the equipment. It depends on the sublease, but in my particular sublease, there's a limited space and having different equipment like OCT or visual fields. So that was one thing I really wanted to do with the private practice side, is be able to practice full scope, use all our knowledge that we've learned in school. The other side is the business side. So that's something I do enjoy, which was a good process with the subleases where you get to run your own business, grow your practice, have associates. But I've always, since optometry school, wanted to go into private practice, and I feel like if I never took that jump, it would always be like, oh, what if I did private practice? So it's been a good transition. Definitely a lot of work, as Amrit, it's
Yes.
a lot of small details that you have to figure out, and
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Yeah.
it's been good. So now we can grow our practice and go from there.
So after graduation from ICO, did you know you were gonna do like a side by side? Because can you tell everyone how many you had initially?
At one
Yes,
point in time.
On what point in
yes.
time? Because when I heard that, I was like, does Manraj sleep at all? Like, how does he manage that many? Or is that normal for, I don't know, like, is that normal?
Yeah,
I don't
it's a
know.
good question. When I first graduated, I started just as an associate. So I was
Mhm.
working for a doctor at one of those side by side offices.
Yeah.
And she had a few locations. So I would travel to the different locations and as an associate at first. Then there was a few subleases that opened up about an hour away. And they presented the opportunity to be a sublease doctor. It was like an hour away. So I was a little bit hesitant, but I thought it'd be a good way to kind of step into that
Mm-hmm.
field and learn more about it. So I took the opportunity with one location, and then another one came up, and I took that one. Uh, and then the doctor I was initially working for, she went to a different place, so her 5 locations opened up.
Oh my
So I was just like,
goodness.
okay, let me try to do as much as I can. I'd go like to each location like once a week, once every other week. And at one point, I had 10 locations I was going to and managing.
Oh my
So it was a good
gosh.
setup as long as I remembered where to go.
Yeah.
I didn't
Well,
forget, so that was good.
and you weren't at every location like once a day every week. I remember you
Yeah,
said like if one location was super, super far, it was like once every other week,
yeah.
maybe for
Some days
half a day.
I would go to 2 in a day, so
Yeah.
that split them up.
Oh, okay.
But I did then. It was at a point where the practice was growing, and I couldn't be everywhere all at once. So I started hiring some associates. But since some of the locations are pretty far away outside the GTA, like an hour and a half, 2 hours, it was really tough to find associates, which was one of
Yes.
the limitations of the side by side.
Yeah.
But it was a great learning experience, like trying to have partnerships with all the different opticians in each location,
Mm-hmm.
manage the relationships with the associates, scheduling, doing their billings. So
Mm-hmm.
I learned a lot that way, but I realized I was stretched a little too thin, so I just downsized some of the locations.
Yeah. And I think that was the really hard part. So I actually reconnected with Manraj after school because I ended up contacting him, asking if he knew anyone looking for work. And he was like, yeah, do you want to work at my side by side in Newmarket? And I was like, yes, I need a job. I'm broke.
Like pick 10, or I
Pick
have 10
10. Yeah,
choices for
pick
you.
which one.
Which
And
one would you like?
but it's hard because I was that only associate. And I remember Manraj was like, why don't you just come for like 3 months or something? And, I'll look for another associate. And like 2 years went by and I was the only doctor there once a week. Right. And then all of his other locations, I remember he was trying for like 2 years to find associates at all of his other locations. And it's hard. No one wants to drive north of a big city, right? Because all their families in the big city, all the livelihood is there for young people. And yeah, it's hard to get people to commute that far. I still don't know how he does it now. It's a far commute.
Yeah, like now I go to just like Barrie and Alliston, so it's like an hour away. But then some of the other communities I used to go to are like an hour and a half, 2 hours away. And then when I had to stop there, you would feel bad because those patients you develop good connections with them.
Yeah.
They're really happy to see you because they're underserved populations where
Okay.
they have to wait like 6 months to get an eye exam. So people, when we were graduating, I don't know if it was like this for you guys, but everyone was saying, "Oh, like the market's saturated. There's so many
Mm.
optometrists in the area." When I came here, started practicing, and then I tried to find doctors. There's always a demand for it.
I actually I wanted to add a little bit to the first question
Hmm.
because the first time we ever talked about opening a practice together, and I mentioned this to you earlier this week, you turned me down and you said no. You're like, no, I'm not looking into practice ownership, finances. Nuh-uh, I'm not in that space. And I swear in less than 6 months, I think we had the conversation again and you were like on board. So Did anything change about your setting at that time that made you like switch your thoughts right away?
With like running the subleases, I was doing it like solo. So I wasn't always sure, like if I opened a private practice, I was like, is this something I want to do myself or can I do this with a partner? Because I got so used to working solo. So that was one thing. The other thing was, like I said, I always wanted to open a private practice. I just never knew when the right time would be. And I was seeing this subleases were harder to maintain and keep those associates and fulfill that patient base the way I was going. Plus, I was commuting a lot, and I was kind of getting sick of the commute. So all those things kind of factored into. I was like, okay, let's look into opening a practice. Having a partner would be a great option.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of pros and cons, but and then opening up somewhere close to home would be awesome too. So
Yeah. So then, I mean, Manraj, you just kind of went into our next question. So how did you decide that a business partnership was something that you were comfortable with compared to solo ownership?
That could be a question for both of us anyways,
Yeah.
because we both made that decision. I know for sure for me, a big decision to contact Manraj and ask if a business partnership was on the table is finances. I definitely knew I wanted to be a practice owner because I'm also very headstrong. I have a vision of how I want to practice and what I want to offer patients. And so if I'm a practice owner, I can do that. Can I afford to own a practice and run it all by myself with what I want to offer? Absolutely not in this stage of my life all by myself. So I knew having a business partnership would be helpful financially. There's so many other ones, but I feel like that was what just kind of triggered me to message Manraj one day and be like, "Hey, what do you think of this?"
I
Amrit just
feel
basically chased Manraj down and
I
been like,
did.
be my
I did.
partner. And he was like,
I
not
did.
yet. And then
That's
eventually
exactly
you
what
wore him
happened.
down. So yeah, okay. So then Manraj, getting into that conversation, how did you even know about this place, right? Like how did you even
yeah.
find it? How did you hear about it? What
So
connections do you have?
He has many.
it's probably there's actually no connection. It's just me commuting all the time. I pass by a lot of plazas and I pay attention to what's growing and what's not. So this plaza, the one that we're opening now, we actually like I drove by it many times. So just reached out a few times about it, and they had an availability. And but going back to your other question about like why I chose partnership and what I thought would be good. So like Amrit said, having financially, it's really important. You could open cold without having a partner, but it is tough, especially the one of the biggest advantages we can be at the practice and we can work on the side as well. So right now I'm there 2.5 days a week and Amrit's there 2.5 days a week. And the other 3.5, like the other days we're working at other places. So that just helps our cash flow. And the other thing is I wanted somebody who can kind of complement my weaknesses. So finding a partner where they can do things that you don't do as well is a great benefit. So, like for example, Amra's really good at social media.
Yes.
Social media is not my strong set. She does a great job at it, and that helps her practice a lot. Another thing is VT. She's
Mhm.
really good at VT. I kind of pass everything on to her, but I
No,
should
we're
brush
gonna
up on
learn.
it.
We're gonna learn. We're gonna teach you. I have to do a
Yeah, I got to
in-office
brush up.
lecture on VT soon.
Manraj
Yeah.
is like, I don't know, this kid's gaze tracking is off. See, I'm right there. But I mean, also, you guys are not like, so I mean, this was not like any partner you guys chose, right? So what qualities do you guys look for in a business partner, and what's important to you, and what would you consider red flags for yourself
Mhm.
where you're like, oh, I don't, maybe this is
Mhm.
not a good idea?
I will say one thing that I think can apply to anybody who's looking for qualities of a business partner. You do want someone who has ultimately the same goals, mission, and values for the practice that you have, but you want their maybe personality and decision making and other qualities to be polar opposite to you. Because what Manraj said, we have different qualities, so we pretty much make a whole, right? I can do some things and then Manraj can do some things, and like we're great in different areas. So we kind of cover all of our bases there. But at the end of the day, even if we disagree on, how to market something or how to do pre-tests, what's the order like? At the end of the day, our goals for Northern Sight Optometry are the same. So
Yeah.
whatever decision we make, we know that the decision will make the practice better. It'll make the practice grow. It'll be good for the patients and good for the business. So it's kind of like an umbrella, be on the same level, and then just have different qualities to achieve those goals. That's
Right.
just generally what I think is a good business partnership.
Yeah, and we when we first started out, we both like talked about our values, what we want to see in a practice. We kind of listed them out. We did some exercises, talked to other doctors who are in partnerships,
Yeah.
just because it is a big step to take on a partnership. You're growing a business, talking to each other often, sharing ideas. Any idea you have, you want to. It also makes you second guess certain decisions in a good way, because you're not just gonna make a rash decision. You're gonna think it through and be like, okay, is this something that uh, Amrit would agree with as well, and is this something that's good for the whole business? So it does put a different perspective to it. But doing those exercises in the beginning, that helped a lot too.
And I'll talk about those exercises. If anyone is debating on having a business partnership, what we did when we both finally came to the agreement that we're interested in possibly practicing together, I started Googling qualities to look for in a business partner or questions to ask when interviewing a business partner. And then I found a list of questions. I just made it on a Google Doc, sent it to Manraj, and I just said, you know what? Why don't you just, answer these questions? I'll answer them. And then let's get on a phone call like next week and let's go through our answers together. And the questions were, what's your main motivation to open a practice? Where do you see the practice in 5 years, 10 years? What are your opinions about, vacation days, sick days? It was like what, like 15, 20 questions, like
Yeah,
quite detailed. And then when we were on the phone, we started going through the answers and like all of them were almost the same. And so that's I thought that was a really cool exercise and it's unbiased. And that'll give you an idea of how the other person thinks.
I have a random question. Do either of you have any family members that are entrepreneurs where they have their own business and could help guide you guys? Or is this like, oh, this is something we're totally figuring out on our own? Or even friends, close friends that are like that?
yeah. For me, like most people in my family, they haven't really owned a business. So I'm one of the first people, I guess, in my family to open a business or be an entrepreneur. So I never had that many people I could bounce ideas off of. I do have other optometry friends, like my classmates that have opened practices recently. So definitely always reach out to them, ask them a lot of questions.
I just went out meeting people that own practices through Instagram, cold calling some of them that I followed for like 3 years. And I shout out to Respect Eye Care, Steven. He helped me a lot. Doctor
Mhm.
Harbir Sayan, he helped me a lot. Like I just kind of cold called people and asked them, how is it running a business? Dr. Harbir Sayan has a partnership too. Asked him a lot of partnership advice. And so that kind of helped guide my decisions for getting it started.
I was gonna ask too, what were your guys' red flags for business partners?
Definitely for me, someone who is like me. I know 100%.
Manraj is like, yes.
See, there you go. I get along with people like me, but if I have to win an argument or like I want my decision to be the decision that's agreed upon, it would not go well with a person who argues like me.
Yes.
Because I
I
always
also
win
agree with
anyways. So I need to argue with a nice person because I win.
Yeah, no, it helps like our personalities are different
Yeah.
because we're more like I'm more, I let things go a little bit easier, especially like in the practice and stuff too. But
Yes.
that could be a bad thing as well for sure. So having a partner that it's a little bit more attention to detail, or it's a good
yeah.
balance to have.
So
Like
Yeah.
I
if
mean,
we
I
were
think
both
you
like
guys
relaxed and doing nothing, I think it'd be too chill.
You know what? I will add one thing. Now, this all depends on this can be very different for everyone based on their life circumstances, their financial status, and just their age. But I had a sense that Manraj and his wife are in a similar financial state to myself and my husband. So I know Manraj is an optometrist. That's very easy to estimate what his average salary is. And, he has jobs. He can get a job later if something goes wrong. We know what our salary is. And his wife is an accountant, and my husband is a software engineer. So that also gave me myself a little hint that, okay, Manraj and I are going to be financially struggling opening this new business. Our bank accounts might end up being negative for a little bit, but we both do have a cushion. We have a spouse that has a pretty steady job with a pretty decent salary who can help support the other. And that actually was that played a big role in me also kind of deciding who would be my business partner. Because I think for me it would be difficult for me to know without directly asking someone what their financial status and situation is if they lived alone, if they didn't live with any family, they didn't have anyone else to kind of help them out, then I would be nervous too, to be like, well, how are you gonna, support yourself if we're gonna be dumping all of our money into this huge project and business?
Another thing we spoke about was what we're going to do with the finances in the business, how it's going to be split up, which I think was important. If somebody goes on maternity leave or paternity leave, how that would affect the business. So there's a lot of little details you have to think about as well, because those little details can add up and become a big problem if you.
Yeah. I think that partnership questionnaire, though, was kind of the window into, okay, well, if your answers don't line up, now we have to
Yeah.
discuss them to say,
Yeah.
well, why do you believe this way? Why do I believe that way? How you express your answer in even just that questionnaire can give you a sense of how is this person when, making a decision or discussing something. Are they more aggressive, aka me, or are they more kind? Like, are they more welcome and opening to your advice? Do they shut you down? Me. Um, so I
I
think
want to
that,
say that, yeah, I feel like you've probably grown a lot too since we
I
started this
have,
partnership, where
I
you've
have.
been
We'll
more
we'll go
willing
into
to think
yeah,
about your
we'll go
ideas.
into the pros and cons of us actually working together soon. But
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, why don't you guys talk about it? So what have been the pros and cons of like a business partnership throughout the process of getting your guys' lease, the construction, and now operating the business?
When you're working full time, just dividing up the workload is huge. That's been probably one of the biggest benefits. Also, we talked about a little bit. The pros are like financially, you get to split time. You can still continue to work while
yeah,
being at the practice.
yeah,
And the third thing I would say is the pro is like you get a different perspective. Sometimes when you're doing something yourself, it's just you think about it one way and you don't think about it any other way, or you think like, okay, my way, I've done it like this before, so this must be right. It's worked before. But having a partner, they have different opinions, so it challenges you, and it forces you to rethink and be more open, have an open
yeah,
perspective.
yeah. I can add to pros with all of the stuff during, finding a lease and trying to sign a contract for a space. Like Manraj said, you get flooded with a lot of emails, a lot of phone calls, a lot of lawyer invoices, and a lot of like fees that you have to pay. And I think we were getting like at least like 5, 6 emails a day going back and forth, negotiating.
Especially with our landlord, like the whole lease process was probably
Yeah.
more hectic than it is for most people, but
Yeah,
that was
very emotionally draining. And so just to have another person that understands fully what you're going through, is there to help you, and you can split up the work 100%. Like that was the best part of the partnership in the beginning. I think it'll be more exciting when we actually get to start working together side by side, because then that'll be more fun. We can also bounce like exams on top of each other, and like we can just kind of like
yeah.
talk about our patients and be like, okay, what do you have? I have this. I like learning from other ODs. I always ask for their advice, their opinions. And so once we're actually able to practice together, I feel like that's going to be like the best pro.
Yeah, for sure. That's one of the things I liked about working at a different private practice was there's other doctors there. You can bounce ideas, you learn from them. One of the cons is though when you want to arrange things
He's
a
like
certain
ready.
way, and you come back the next day, everything's gone and moved back
Yeah.
like the TV today.
So like when they say it's a marriage, I always felt like that's so stupid. Like why would you call it a marriage? Like I don't it's a different relationship. Like yes, it's a business relationship. Manraj is on speed dial under my husband. And like it's Manraj and I, especially when we signed our lease and our construction was happening, I swear we were texting each other at like 5:30 or 6 in the morning, like before Ajin would even wake up. And the minute he wakes up, he's like, "Why are you on your phone?" I'm like, "I'm talking to Manraj. I'm like half asleep." And he's like, "You guys are literally texting first thing in the morning." I'm like, "It's important. We have a baby. Like this is literally our child." And so Manraj and I are communicating with each other anytime, every single day from like 6 a.m. till midnight. Like if something is up, if we need something, we're constantly talking to each other, and we're learning each other's personalities, each other's emotions, reactions, flaws, like everything. And so it's really become like a second marriage. Like I feel like we know so much about each other. We know when we're pushing each other's buttons. We know how to stop an argument just to like let the other person kind of like have it. And then and yes, we bicker a lot about placement. Placement.
So
That
what's an
is a thing.
example of this argument you guys had
Oh
about
my gosh.
placing equipment, I'm assuming, or
No.
Oh,
oh,
equipment's pretty
what
standard. We
we
have that laid out based on where we put all the drawings and everything like that.
Yeah.
It's just little things like
Say it,
the
Manraj. Say it
TV,
all.
the where the flower we like Katie puts flowers in a certain place or
the flowers? What
sign.
Like,
flower? Like
do we
oh,
sound like a bickering, like married couple now when
like
he
a
said
pot of
flowers?
Well,
flowers, like for decoration?
no, we got a lot of flowers from the grand opening, like as
Oh,
gifts. So we had
okay.
a bunch, but Amrit just likes to move everything how she likes it. So now it's just for fun. We just move stuff around on purpose, just so
Yeah,
to.
I feel like we bicker about little things, but the bigger decisions, the finances, just the way the practice is running, so far we've been pretty good. And if we have come to a disagreement, which we have at some points, like for example, office hours, we just talked about that. Um, we disagreed for a good like week or two. And then we had another sit down conversation and said, okay, well, this is where I'm coming from. This is where you're coming from.
As long as there's good communication between
Yeah,
like a partnership, then it'll always work out.
definitely.
It's only been how long have you guys been
8 weeks. It's
Eight
flying.
weeks.
okay, 8 weeks. 8 years we'll do another one of these
Yeah.
podcasts.
But we
Eight.
started this process, I think, 2021, right?
Yes, I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
just about to add that. I mean, we've been open for 2 months, but we were in negotiations and trying to get the offer to lease since 2021. So it's been a 2-year process of Manraj and I speaking day in, day out on the phone, texting, like really figuring this all out. So we've really gotten that connection over 2 years before the practice even started. And so that was a really good way to build our partnership.
Yeah, but so far it's been fun. It's been rewarding. Thinking about an idea, talking about it, and now going through all the process, all the hard work and executing, and now you actually have a practice there, standing, and all the little details we thought about, the vibe, it's kind of come
Yeah.
through.
Yeah.
The equipment's all set up, so that's all good now. Now let's hope it runs, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. Hope
It's
it
crazy
runs.
when what was the first time you met Manraj? It was probably through Rav.
Oh my
Never
goodness.
thought like,
Yeah.
man, this gonna be my business partner in 8 years or something or whatever, 5 years.
Deepon, would you like to become third partner? We're waiting
No.
for you to move to Toronto.
We have a third
He's like,
exam
nope.
room.
I know. Amrit already told me, she's like, come here. you guys have like 4 exam rooms. She's like, take all the
Yep.
exam rooms you need.
Yep.
There's no equipment, but there's an exam.
Yeah.
Actually, I have a question. How far do you guys live from your practice? Is it like really close?
5
Yeah,
minutes.
so I'm like, she's 5 minutes away, I'm 10 minutes away, so it's super close.
Wow. So like even Manraj scoping out that plaza and was like, oh, like Manraj, did you know at the time Amrit lived that close there or no?
I knew she lived in like close by as well because she was
Mhm.
going to
Okay.
Newmarket, like the other location.
Okay.
So I knew it was kind of in between our house.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely wanted to be somewhere close to this area
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
because with our community, it's a growing area. So definitely scoping out the location was important.
Yeah.
I think that was a huge thing for both of our mental health too. It's really, really nice to have a practice close to home. And
Yeah.
then that was a huge bonus for both of us during construction time. You know, if something happened at the practice, again, if one of us is at work, the other one could just kind of drive there, check out what's happening, the construction work, the fire, when there was the big, I don't know if people ever saw my Instagram stories. That one time there was a humongous fire where almost 70 homes under construction were burning in flames right in front of our practice that was still under construction, and our unit almost burned down pretty much. And I was at home, Manraj was in Barrie or somewhere,
Yeah,
and
like an hour and a half away.
right, and I live 5 minutes from the fire, so I was like, hey, just calling you to let you know our practice is not burning down, but when you come home, you should drive by and check on it because now I have to go to work and this fire is not getting out. Manraj is like, I'm sorry, hello? Hello, what? There's a fire. So
I was like, what are you talking about?
it was good to it's good to live close to the practice. I think it
Yeah.
makes it's good for our mental health too.
I know I was gonna say I actually had another practice owner tell me he did not want to live close to where he practiced and owned his business because he did not want to see his patients all the time in the
Yep.
community. So I thought that was an interesting point. I guess would you guys care if you saw your patients? If you went out to dinner and they were like, "Oh my God, hi Dr. Bilku," or like, like, "Hi Dr. Fervaha," like, would you
I
guys
probably wouldn't mind too
care?
much if I
Yeah,
could
but
see
Yeah.
them.
Manraj would be like, "I'm not gonna answer. Like, I'm not gonna
Um,
respond to that."
on the other, like, because when I was working at the other places when I was a little bit further away, it's nice seeing the patients, but
Yeah.
then you don't get the continuity with the patients. So
Hmm.
that's what I like here. We can now see our own patients, see them for longer, see their families, and then seeing them in the community. Uh, as long as they're not like bothering you, I think is
Yeah. As long as they're not
Okay.
harassing you. No,
yeah,
actually, I'm the same. And again, I feel like that kind of chimes into, we have similar values at the end of the day. One of our goals for the practice is to make it feel like a family friendly office, and we want it to feel like a community. So even for myself, if I saw patients outside of work, if they approached me, I'd actually feel very like humbled, like, oh wow, okay, like you remember me. That's
Mhm.
so cool. If they were coming up to me with like an angry face, be like, you charge my insurance this much, I'd be really nervous. But also, I feel like I work, even you, Manraj, we both work at least like we work 6 days a week. I mean, I'm never even out in my own city. I'm always at work. So I'm at work or I'm in my house. I don't just go out around
Mm.
my town. That just doesn't happen. So,
Well, they say business partnerships are like a second marriage. So let's see how well you guys know each other by now. So, first question, who is most likely to handle staff or team disputes immediately? So, basically, who's more confrontational or who's more comfortable with that?
me.
Okay. So, Manraj and Amrit both agree it's Amrit. So yeah, like say if there's a situation when you guys have more team members, two of them are, arguing about something, and then one of them goes up to you and says, there's an issue. Who is most likely to just handle that and communicate about it right away versus going, okay, we'll deal with it later. Not
yeah.
right
I would say Amr would do it right away.
now. Okay.
Yeah.
I would
I
probably do it later, like or
I think Manraj would have to do it if I'm not in the practice. He'd be like, okay,
No, he
well,
would just boot it over to you, Amrit,
Yeah.
the next day and be like, Amrit, there was a situation in the office. So
that's 100%. Yeah, it's
yeah.
actually
I
Do
pretty
you
would
think
set up a
true.
team members
meeting
would
and
find out
figure it
about
out.
this and eventually would just go to Amrit and be like, only
No,
Dr.
but
Bilku will deal with this?
but I will say, but Manraj would be the one to like handle that dispute better, but he would not be the one to handle
Oh.
it first because I'm also
So what do you
just
mean he would handle it
like I think he'd
better?
just be nicer to both staff members about it.
Ah,
I wouldn't be as empathetic
okay.
if a staff I would just kind of be like, why are you guys wasting time arguing? Like unless someone was actually being rude to somebody else,
Yeah.
of course. But if they're just arguing of you didn't book this patient the right way, blah blah blah,
Mhm.
I'd be like, okay, no one cares who did what. Like, fix it. Like, fix the problem. I don't care who's upset. I think Manraj would at least, if it's brought to him, he'd be like, okay, like X
Sit
girl,
down. Tell
I'll
can
me the
try
you
issue.
to
apologize to Y
keep it
girl
up.
and you know you guys should all just be friends and why is
I can totally see Manraj going. And then the girl or whoever, the team members would be
X
like,
girl and
this
Y
was
girl?
useless.
So that's I
What
think
happens
that's
now with you and Katie?
yeah, I'm not gonna lie, the three of us all actually bicker together, and half the time Katie is on Manraj's side, and then half the time she's on my side. So it doesn't help, but that's what happens.
Who is most likely to impulse buy the newest optometric piece of equipment?
I think Manraj.
Oh, they pointed to
Really?
each other. Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
Fight for yourselves. Why?
I would probably want the latest piece of equipment, but then I wouldn't buy it unless I had to look at all the finances.
Oh.
Yes. Okay, that's true, but I'm also extremely picky and stubborn. I would not have an impulse to buy something just because it's brand new and the technology's new. I actually judge and question all new technology. So I do want to impulse buy what I want for the practice, or like not just because like news came out that something fancy came out.
I was gonna say, was there something like a specific piece of equipment that you are already like each of you are already thinking about where you'd be like, oh, we need to get that later on?
I think right now it was technically our virtual visual field.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Manraj wanted to hold off on it a little bit longer. And I said, screw it. The loan is here. Let's just get it. And he was like, well, it cost this much. I'm like, forget about it. Throw it in the bill. I was like, just get it.
Okay, so I think Manraj wins
Yeah.
the case here. You're the impulse buyer.
That was a perfect example.
This is actually one of my favorite ones. Who is most likely to squeeze in another emergency, even if their schedule is already overbooked and you're running behind like 20 minutes? So Amrit's pointing at Manraj, and Manraj
Yes.
agrees it would be him. Okay.
100%.
Okay.
He
Yeah,
has a soft spot for patients. I can tell.
So Manraj,
Yeah, I'd probably do it.
when you say yes to that, is like if that actually happened, does that stress you out, or are you just kind of like, I'm just gonna be behind another like 30 minutes, not a big deal? Because I'm like Amrit,
Yeah.
I would be like, go somewhere
Hence.
else.
Yeah, if I fall behind on my schedule, I do. It does like stress me out for sure. So I hate being behind. But
Mhm.
if it's like an emergency, then I'll squeeze them in
Squeeze
because
him in. Okay.
yeah, usually I'm like, okay, I'll be able to catch up or like make up for it.
Okay. Okay.
Like so far in our practice, it hasn't happened because it's pretty slow, but
Mhm.
in other places it's happened.
Okay. Ooh, okay. Who is most likely to panic if all your electronics stop working and everything has to be done through paper?
Oh,
Oh, they
I
pointed to each other.
can I say both of us though? I've seen both of us panic.
Oh, really?
You know what?
How's
I
it
think
handled? How would you guys handle this situation?
internally, both of us would panic,
Yeah,
but
internally, yeah.
externally, we show it in different ways.
Okay.
I would be more verbal and frantic, and you do this, you do this. Like I get more bossy, and I just go, okay, let's figure out a system, and okay, everyone just get to it. Manraj, I feel like panics quietly internally,
I
and
was trying
he's
to figure out how to solve it, and
right.
try
He's
to-
I
like
just see
thinking
Manraj in
about
a
it.
corner, just like talking to himself, and Amrit's just telling
But there is
everyone.
a problem if that ever did happen, because all our equipment's like our VA chart's
Digital.
electronic, Raptor's electronic now. So
Digital.
maybe we need like a backup generator. It's a
Yeah.
good
I
question.
think yeah.
There you
I
go.
think
I'm giving you these ideas.
Deepon's just
I got
helping
you
us
too.
prep for doomsday pretty much.
I know.
Before
No, I
the
mean,
divorce,
Solar
before
panels.
the 2-year follow-up podcast.
I've been in the situation before at one of my clinics where everything kind of just shut down.
Yeah.
And I was panicking because we had a fully booked day, and I was like, we had nothing set up
Oh,
for
I don't
like
panic
paper
at
scripts.
all. That's called canceling everybody for the day. That's like
Well, it wasn't my practice, so the decision
True.
was to continue on. But yeah, I think I'm more like Manraj. I kind of panic inside, and then in my head I'm like saying all these things like what needs to be done.
Yeah.
But externally I'm like trying to be as friendly as possible. I'm like, okay guys, we're gonna get
yes.
through this. Everything's gonna be okay. But inside I'm like dying. So
Yeah.
so
We put on the front.
Oh, okay. This is also one of my favorite questions. Who is most likely to go the longest without interrupting the patient who tells you their life story, their mother's life story, and their great grandmother's life story? And again, you're falling 30 minutes behind.
About 30 minutes. Yeah. Probably.
Yeah, it's Manraj. 100%.
Okay, so Amrit pointed to Manraj, and Manraj agreed it would be him. Okay, so
Definitely, like
Manraj
when I
is just the
first
more
started
patient one.
when I first started practicing, that was like it was hard to cut off patients, but now I feel like I've gotten better at it.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, I let
He's
them
like,
go
I
on.
only let them go up to their mother's life story. That's it. That's what it's gonna.
Cut it off.
That's because that's what he does for me and Katie. I feel like we just keep talking and Manraj just goes, "Okay, can you stop talking now?"
Let's walk
Okay.
away.
Yeah.
You guys did pretty good. I think the only one you guys got, like, there's only two that you guys pointed at each other. So you guys know each other pretty well. And you could probably tell how well you guys balance each other out from those questions too. So good.
It's always scary having a business partnership because most other, like a handful of other ODs that I know I talk to who have had business partnerships in the past, all failed and they just decided to, split, move on. Some maybe stayed friendly, some don't talk to each other anymore. If something happens, it'll happen. We cannot stop it. We know we tried our best to, put our all into the business together. And we also prepared our exit strategy with our lawyer. That's it.
I think
That was a huge one.
that's something we didn't talk about was creating a partnership agreement,
Yes.
having a lawyer drafted up, just in case there is any conflict or if there is, if you're ever selling the business, that there's a whole strategy in place and you guys know about it before, so there's nothing to worry about.
Exactly.
So talking to Dr.
That's actually
Sayan
a
was
very
good.
important point. Yeah. Yes. That's it, Manraj. You made it through. See, it's just like
Yay, you made
She
it
ended with
through.
something positive. She ended it with like everything going south. So
Oh, you should just chime in then and be like, but it's not going south, it's only going north.
there you go.
There you go. You say it again.
Thanks for listening to Four Eyes, the podcast series brought to you by Young OD Connect. Be sure to subscribe and follow us on Instagram or YouTube at Four Eyes Optom for more content. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.